Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grip Lock, Foundation Disc Golf's weekly podcast. I'm Hunter, joined as always by Trevor and Konner, and we had disc golf last weekend.
Sure did.
Actually, this past weekend, not last weekend. I don't know how you say it. It doesn't matter. The Las Vegas Challenge.
We had disc golf yesterday.
The Las Vegas Challenge officially happened. Let's get straight into it. So we're going to talk about some results, some storylines, and then we'll look at our points from our predictions on the preview show. But getting straight into it, FPO. We had Katrina Allen coming out, taking out her first win with DGA on her back. Paige Pierce came in second. Kristen Tatar came... What did I just say? Kristen Tatar came in third. I got Tatar and third mixed up. So Kristen Tatar
Nice.
came
You're
in
never
third.
living that down.
I'm not.
That is so funny.
All right, anyways.
You're going to get blocked on Twitter by Kristen Tatar.
Yeah. Some storylines. First off, Katrina Allen looked very good out there. She made some mistakes.
Yeah.
Don't read my notes.
No, I'm not even reading your notes.
Cheating?
I can't stop thinking about Tatar.
It's okay.
I'm a little upset at it. Oh, all right, go ahead.
Ian said Ian had several mishaps wording wise on the broadcast. One of the worst ones was he said dick's length instead of disc's length.
I mean,
inbounds.
that's understandable.
So he pulled a Terry Miller there.
That's understandable.
So I think I can get.
Are we going to talk
third.
about commentary at some point?
At some point.
I can't
farther
wait
down the line.
because I forgot about Terry. Go ahead.
Kat looked very good out there, though. She had some mistakes, but overall, very impressive play. She actually was able to win the tournament, only putting 55% from C1X putting, which is crazy because when I was watching, when I was watching the tournament, the whole time I felt like Kat's putting was better.
Yeah,
like it looked better, but then I looked at the stats after. I was like, oh, it's only 55%.
I think the key is she was just making the really important ones, and that's why it's like every time I was like, ooh, Kat needs this putt, she was making them. I think that's what it comes down to, and that's the thing when you throw as well as her, and you just have way more opportunities to score. Because that's the other thing is she was missing birdie putts.
Yeah,
and probably a lot of that putting. Those putting statistics probably came from her bad round in that third round.
Probably.
So I think that overall, even though the putting percentage is still not great, I think that she did what she had to do with the putter. Some players just aren't going to be lethal putters. Now, there will be a time where you got to do it all because that's just what's going to take to win on a certain weekend. But for her, and this weekend in particular, with her distance and control she had going on, that's all she needed. Yeah,
I mean, Paige had a shot at a playoff or possibly a win going like on 18.
I love that 18th hole.
But 18,
holy cow.
18's approach.
Sick.
It pretty much it has danger on the drive, depending on where you laid up. Danger on the second shot.
There was options, which is what you want.
And then depending on that, sometimes danger on the third shot for FPO. Yeah. And then the putt wasn't a gimme because it was up on a hill.
I love that she went for it. As soon as I saw her pull the Zeus and was like going to go for it, I was like, I love that play. Like, let's be aggressive. Just take the win right there.
It's better to lose being aggressive than lose trying to lay up.
It was a bummer that she messed it up, but like you want to lose there, not like on some little trickle up shot or like a missed putt.
Well,
you want to put it in your hands.
That's why I always like the aggressive play because it's in your hands.
Yeah.
You feel like I was doing what I needed to do to win versus I was trying to play safe and did something stupid, which I think that might have been a little flashback to Worlds for her.
Yeah.
Where she was trying to play safe and then end up losing it versus 100%. Just like do what you need to do to guarantee the win and don't do... Some situations it's like a very smart play to lay up, but in certain situations where you're like, I can lay up and, have a shot at the win or forcing a playoff, or I can go for it and guarantee a win.
Yeah.
I like the go for it, guarantee a win.
Absolutely. And it's also kind of like whenever you play doubles and your partner parks it and you be like, oh, I guess I got the green light, I'm going to run it. And then even if you do really bad, it's because you ran it, so you have an excuse.
Exactly. Well, also in doubles that you have another person.
No, I'm just saying that, whatever.
I get you. I got it.
Listen, man. You got it.
This man is all business.
There is also a cut after round 3 in this tournament, which I like. I wish it was after round 2, just because like it would have made more sense.
I still like it because it was vicious. Like what was it? Top 48,
top 40% of both fields.
It was
right at the cash line.
Vicious. Like people, really good players were just getting crushed.
Well, that's so notable names that missed the cut for FPO: Henna Blomroos, Deanne Carey, Ellen Widboom, who won on tour like a year or two ago, and then Kona Panis. She's got Kona. I think. Well,
her hands are cold.
Henna's
man.
one.
What she said.
Henna's one storyline that we'll talk about here in a second. But Kona's got to find a way to play without the pressure of the contract.
She's
She played
She's got-
solid the first few rounds.
Yeah.
It seemed like once mistakes started, she couldn't
They
get off the
snowballed.
mistake train.
You know, she's got that one off her shoulders, though. I hope that, like, now that she's kind of like that's like almost worst case scenario, right? First event in the spotlight, you miss the cut. Like that's pretty worst case. So I hope that
especially
now,
after she was 5 under par going into round 3, then shot an 11 over to be
Right.
6 over par.
and that's the thing. She's always liable for rounds like that. That's something you just got to work on. You got to be a player who can minimize the damage, who can take.
You have to be able to bounce back.
You got to take a triple bogey, short memory, and just work from there. But I hopefully, like, now that this one's off her shoulders and like it's out there in the air, you know, it happened. It is what it is. Hopefully, she can kind of like get back on track because she's talented. Now, I don't think on her best day, I don't know if she's beating some of these top players right now, but. I think
if
she
they
can,
have a bad day and she has a great
she
day,
can
yes.
she can get herself in the mix, and
If they're both having great days, I agree. A great day for Paige, Kat, Kristen, even Evelina
They're tough to
is.
beat. They're tough.
You're not,
But I mean, she definitely can compete. So you know, we'll see what happens. I mean, the pressure of big contracts. It's not new to sports. This happens all the time to like all kinds of players from all different sports. Like all of a sudden, everybody's looking at you because they know how much money you make. It's right. It's like imagine just showing up to your job and then your salary floating above your head. Like people are gonna look at you different when they know what you're worth.
Yeah, that's why no one knows what Trevor makes.
Exactly.
Then you can't look at him and see that 7 figures above his head.
That's right. That'd be a funny joke. I make $86,000 an episode of the show. Actually.
But gosh, I had something on my mind. Oh. Yeah, so right after right after the round and everything, she actually went on to Instagram. And posted a video saying that like immediately after the round, she actually deleted her Instagram and her Facebook for I think just overnight. Not like deleted the accounts, but off her phone.
I wonder if she's now actually
back to
was
it,
like getting hate.
Well, I think it's not.
Or maybe she
not
didn't
necessarily.
Maybe
hate.
she didn't even want to see the like encouragement. Like sometimes you play so bad you don't
yeah.
even want to hear the like keep your head up.
I think that
get
you gotta weigh out what's hate and what's just like you're a professional athlete, right? So some people, I mean, I've been blocked by players. We all know that.
Athlete.
No, I'm not a professional athlete, but for saying things just about their play. Like
Absolutely.
I think hatred or like hate in a sports sense is like coming after the character of a person or coming after a player. Konner has played bad this weekend. Period. That's not hate.
Mm-hmm.
That's just talking about how. And she has a very large contract. That's also not hate. That's just hey. She had signed to a very large contract. With that big contract comes certain expectations. She didn't meet those expectations, so people were like saying things. Now there could have been hatred-backed comments, like people saying mean things, like almost like an "I told you so" attitude towards her. Sure, but as a professional athlete with more and more eyeballs getting on disc golf, you got to be ready for that.
Yeah,
type
it's
of
not
thing.
going to get any easier. Which well, and to be fair, like you can. That is one thing you can do is just delete.
That's true.
Social media.
That's true.
You don't have to read those messages, and that's something. I mean, honestly, that's something you're probably going to learn to have to do is very much block out a lot of the noise. But it's only going to get tougher.
She has to know how to take it because that's how she like. That's why she
It's
got
a big
her contract
part of her
was
value.
because of her social media.
Yeah,
for the most
social
part.
media is a big part of it. So you can like not read comments, you can do certain things, but she's gonna have to keep posting. That is a big part of it.
But deleting off your phone for a night. I mean, that's not a big deal,
there's nothing wrong with it. It's something that I think is gonna be an interesting storyline because I think as disc golf gets bigger, up to a certain point, media in the past was just like friendly. Essentially, like media was your friend, and so like there wasn't going to be. Like if you played bad the past weekend, they might be like, oh, came in 21st. That's that. Boom, move it on or whatever she came in. I don't know. Definitely not 21st, but move on. And like there isn't any criticism that happens beyond that. But as disc golf gets bigger, there's a market for like actually talking about what happened and not worrying about people's feelings and stuff like that. Because if you look at LeBron James, for instance, if every game that he choked away a game in the fourth quarter, he couldn't handle the people, and even when he plays decent, he couldn't handle people talking bad
LeBron
about
James,
him.
every time he posts anything on social media,
or Grayson Allen, or
pretty much any famous person,
like there's gonna be so many people because the more eyes get in the sport, the more people are gonna like you, but also the more people are gonna dislike you, and the more people the people that dislike you are a lot more vocal than people that like you, because it's a lot easier just to comment and be like you suck than be like, oh my gosh, great job, when like you aren't gonna go out of your way as often to compliment as you are gonna go out of your way as often to let your disapproval be heard.
There you go.
If that makes sense. So as disc golf gets bigger, that's something that these players in general are going to face that they haven't necessarily faced that much in the past.
For sure.
And it's just going to keep getting, I guess you could say, worse for them, if that makes sense.
I guess you could.
Um,
I thought you were going to drop some big word.
No, I was trying to.
I guess you could say worse.
Well, like worse, I don't think's technically the right answer because it's not like it's not bad. Like it means that there's more eyes on the sport and you have more fans.
It's going to get more intense,
but it's going to get. There's going to be a larger volume.
It's going to get how you say worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, as the scholars would say,
worse.
As Aristotle would put it, worse.
There you go.
One thing also that was a big storyline coming into this week, and now that we've seen it play out, what are your thoughts on the European return now that we have one tournament with them here?
Well, we definitely overreacted. In a way, I mean, I definitely did, but I don't know how much of that was irony and how much of me was serious when I was doing that. But I think
where like irony just becomes you.
Yeah,
know what I mean?
I don't know. It's all one at this
You're
point.
Ronnie. Irony.
Thank you.
Ronnie.
I think that as far as if we're talking about the three.
Yeah, I'm talking
FPO
Kristen,
players.
Evelina, Henna.
Right.
I'm talking those three FPO
I see
return.
Seppo, he played all right.
Yeah, no,
He might sneak
I'm
in the
talking
mix.
just strictly FPO right
They did not they didn't impress me as much as I hoped they would, but you got to remember that it is still the first event of the year, and it's their first time back on tour not for Kristen, and she obviously did the best of them, but for the other two, I will say that Henna really disappointed. Obviously, getting cut, that was shocking. I think that we just all had really high hopes because we're like, for instance, in the MPO field, we just got the best dose of parity we've ever seen. I mean, you're looking at that leaderboard like during that third round, and you're like, there is like 25 guys that can win right now, and they're just like not all like Ricky and Eagle weren't in the lead either. Like it was awesome seeing that leaderboard. And I think we just want that so bad for the FPO. We're kind of like over the Paige and Cat era. So I think we were like, well, at least now if we have a few more in the mix, like that would be so great. And I still think it's going to happen. I think like they're not that far off the pace, Kristen was 5 strokes off the pace?
Something like that.
So, but I do think, and you know what? There's probably a lot of people like us that were like really hyping it up. And like they probably felt some of that pressure. They were like, we are supposed to be, the new ones in town kind of taking over. So, we're just going to have to wait and see. Vegas can be very misleading. It can be very misleading because it's a kind of a unique course. It's 4 rounds. Like, there's a lot of things about it that, like, we usually see things happen at Vegas.
That never happen.
The rest of the year.
And it makes us always be like, oh my gosh, this is the year of such and such player
Right.
or such and such.
For instance, now, I doubt this will be the case, but, like, what if Gannon just doesn't even finish in the top 3 the rest of the year? Stuff like that. So, it's tough to say, but I'm gonna just like I'm gonna hold my take a little longer.
Yeah. Well, I'm
just gonna wait.
I think what happened is what I deep down expected to happen, but
just didn't want to believe.
I didn't let my mind accept what I knew, if that makes sense. Because
Yes.
I actually think I said it off air a few times to you and Brody that I was like, Kristen and Evelina, and I think I threw Henna in there too, because I think that in my head they're all still very similarly skilled. I was like, it's like we're getting 3 more Paige and Cats. It's
Right.
kind of how I knew it, but I deeply wanted it to be like we're getting 3 players better than Paige and Cat.
Yeah.
To where,
Same.
which I don't think that's true. I think that it is the case of Kristen. I'm gonna keep Henna in there. I think she just had a bad weekend.
I think she did too.
Kristen, Henna, and Evelina, I think, are the top of the field with Paige and Cat. And I think that it's going to be something where there's going to be some weekends where they look incredible and they're going to beat them. And then there's going to be some weekends like this weekend where Kristen played very well. Evelina really struggled putting. Henna was kind of all over the place, up and down, and ended up outside the cut. I think that could happen to any one of them this year. Paige and Kat, I think, are going to be the most consistent of the 5. But I think Kristen is probably going to be the most consistent of the 3 Europeans. And then Evelina and Henna will have their bright moments. But I do think we probably overhyped him a little bit.
Yeah, I just want so bad.
I think we wanted
to be,
what we were saying to be true so bad that we tried speaking it into existence, and it didn't exactly work.
I just want more parity in the FPO division, and I thought we were gonna like Haley too.
She snuck up there. She played
okay, but she just doesn't.
She was
quite
throwing those zones all over the place.
Yeah, man. We didn't see a ton of her on the coverage. We saw a decent bit, and I think she just has a little bit too much inconsistency.
Yeah. What'll be interesting is the next Pro Tour event is Waco. And Waco, Kona won by a commanding 12 strokes last year. So it'll be an interesting storyline to follow with
That's
Kona.
Even more pressure.
Going into Waco. She won it last year. She had a rough start this year. I believe it's Kona's next tournament. Let me see if she's playing Memorial.
Waco.
No, Waco is her next tournament.
Waco is a perfect reset because we go from a course where it's a lot of I feel like in disc golf right now, there are really, if you want to go as generic and broad as possible, there's two types of courses. The courses where you don't need really perfect timing off the tee and the courses where you do. And Waco is a course where you do for quite a bit of that course. So it's kind of like you need to look at both events to see how the season is going to play out, because you got to see there are certain players who just will not function when they have to hit a 5-foot gap off the tee.
Yeah.
There are certain players who just can't do it. So that's why Waco is a good one to let's wait and see what happens. And then let's start thinking about what's going to go on this year. And then, they will go back to golf courses for a while. So,
yeah, and also, though, fun fact for you. Not really a fun fact. No. Gannon Buhr last year at Waco was one of his first,
he must
breakout performance. He didn't almost win.
Or was he on the lead card?
He was kind of in the mix. I think he made it onto lead card after round one, maybe. Round one, he was on lead card. And he ended up in 11th place, tied with Ricky.
What I'll say...
So Gannon is a player that now has proven to be able to compete with the top level on multiple style of courses. Whereas last year, I think it was Ezra broke out, or it might have been...
Yeah, he came in second.
Yeah, Ezra kind of broke out at Las Vegas.
Then he slowed down.
And then Waco, he's finished outside the top 25. Whereas Gannon has proven he can kind of do both.
Gannon has all the tools.
Waco's a good, like you were saying, you average Waco and Vegas and put them together, and that kind of gives you a good feel.
It's like a little gauge. But Gannon has all the tools. I don't because he has the forehand, he has the backhand, he seems to be able to hit lines. His putt is, I would already consider him one of the better putters on tour.
Yeah, it was thrilling. He felt like he could make it from anywhere.
When I watch his game, I don't see a possibility if he's playing that well to where he can't win anything.
Yeah,
at this point,
he didn't seem to have too many glaring weaknesses. Of this hole has X, Y, or Z shot. Gannon just doesn't have it.
Right.
Which that's true of some players on tour, where there's some courses they just can't win at. And I agree. I think Gannon is just going to be can he consistently do it? But he seems to have, and there's many players nowadays like it where he seems to have just that next level of talent. But let's get actually into MPO. So Drew Gibson actually ended up taking this down in a playoff over the man himself, Gannon Buhr. I guess the kid himself, Gannon Buhr.
Yeah.
Only 16 years old.
Insane.
Keep that in mind.
Insane.
Calvin Heimberg was able to finish in third. And then the dark horse result, Trevor won with his pick of Colton Montgomery, who finished 12th place. What a dark horse pick to start off the year. Quick storyline before we get into the actual storylines of the tournament. As of right now, let me just make sure by refreshing my page. Correct. As of right now, the payouts still have not been posted. So
I looked yesterday because I was talking to my wife and I was like, it is crazy that we're watching this event and it is so hard to win and the stakes are so high and the winner's gonna win $4,000.
Yeah, I kept checking.
I was like, this just can't be real.
I kept checking, trying to see when it was updated. I never saw it.
It just seems silly.
So
watching all that go
hopefully it was increased and the winners can get $6,000 or something like that. But I don't.
Gallery was not very big.
No,
not very big.
No.
Once everybody collected on one hole, it looked a little bit significant. But when you were just watching, not very loud, not very big.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's Vegas, so I don't know what kind of, there might just not be a lot of people out there.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
It's just the galleries right now are dependent fully on the local disc golf scene, essentially. The disc golf scene within a few hour radius.
Or if it's a major, basically.
Or if it's a major.
Right.
But people at this current moment aren't necessarily traveling just to watch a pro tour.
Looked like a really fun course to walk and spectate at.
Yeah.
Unless you were kicking discs back into the fairway.
Hey, that's a big storyline at FPO. Is Kat did have a disc that hit a spectator and bounced back.
I know,
bounds.
and that's the one shot
she won by one stroke
that I missed.
Apparently,
how bad was it?
I didn't see it either. Somehow, I was on my run. I didn't see it. I was running.
Find the clip.
I'm a runner. I know. Apparently, it hit a kid, and the kid felt really bad about it. like they felt like they were like
Well,
embarrassed by it, like it was their fault, which is not your fault. Like,
Yeah.
You can
this is
say
part of
whatever
the
you
course.
want, but spectators getting hit is a part of the game. It happens in golf.
It's a part of the course.
It happens in golf too. Like people will get hit and the ball will bounce back into the fairway. Like
That's just a break.
yeah, it's a break.
It's the same thing as like one player hitting and rolling away and one player hitting the exact
Yeah.
same spot and staying. Like
It's one thing if,
those are just
if
breaks
somebody
of it.
purposely got in the way or
Sure.
moved, but like if you just hit somebody and it bounces, that's just part of the
Yeah,
game.
what'll eventually happen is someone in like a playoff will like the disc will be flying out of bounds. They'll like hit it back in
swat
bounds.
it, yeah.
That is a storyline. That's how they talk about. But as of right now, because it happened to Gannon at one point, where his disc hit a tree.
It was so
and
hard
then a
to tell.
spectator's ankle, and then rolled back.
It was
in.
so hard to tell because like it's falling out of the tree and in real time it just looked like the disc just got pulled by a string or something and just got yanked back and I was like, where did that skip?
Yeah, in slow
And
mo,
then
you saw
him,
like the
yeah,
guy was
ankle
like
kicked
trying to
it.
run away, and his leg like kicked up and kicked.
Probably
the
wouldn't
disc.
have mattered anyways, but
No.
insane.
But like breaks like that, that's just part of the sport. Players are gonna get them, and
It'll
it is
happen.
what it is. If someone ever kicks a disc back in bounds, like intentionally
Then
or
we got
hits
something
it,
to talk about.
then that's a storyline. But it's still not on the player. It's just gonna be on whatever that fan was. Or if the opposite happens, a disc is coming in a player's spectator
Just
jumps and
gets
swats
it
it OB
out.
farther. That would be ruthless. I don't know what you would do there.
I don't know if there's a ruling on
I don't think
fan
there is.
interference.
If
Probably not.
if there's like a during the playoff, Gannon shots coming in over the OB and
I
someone
just-
jumps up and just slaps
Just
the
jump
disc
up
farther
and Mario
OB.
punch that thing underneath.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Or like, what if they literally
you
go in
can
the
jam
fairway
it.
and grab it and just chuck it into the woods?
Well, that like if the disc is already landed, there's rules.
Yeah.
It's when the disc hasn't landed.
What if I
yet.
can
no,
jam
but
that
like
thing in the
landed
basket?
isn't you in your hand, like you catch
Oh,
it.
you just catch it in air.
catch it.
So he's like a streaker. I don't know what happens.
That would be electric.
Someone test that.
You just
don't
throw
actually.
that thing so far into the lake, never found again. Like imagine
Like, oh,
that's
you're
crazy.
OB.
That's the crazy thing about disc golf. And you talk about fan sabotage. Like there are discs that are like Gannon was throwing that D1 like on every shot. What if somebody grabs that thing and yeets it into the water to where it can't be found? All of a sudden, he doesn't have his go-to disc. Like there is crazy stipulations.
That's why there's got to be security.
I'm saying there's some
tight security.
crazy scenarios. That
It
can
might be a
happen.
scenario too where like if you know there's a shot that is going to break, like if you know that this whole like the OB is very tight or whatever, and
Back
the
it
OB's
up a little bit.
Yeah, you take the spectators and you back them like 15
Especially
feet
when,
off.
especially
so
when
like
there are so many shots that curl out and in.
Yeah,
which
like,
I think is electric.
if a spectator gets hit at that point, it's like 15 feet OB.
Right.
To where like it probably isn't going to affect it
Yeah.
inbounds or out of bounds. When you're right up on the OB line, that's when you see kind of what we're seeing now. But again, there's nothing wrong with it right now.
Yeah.
It's just something could be wrong with it in the future. But Gannon played incredible all weekend. He was faced with stressful putt over and over and over. And
cold.
as a 16-year-old, just hit them all.
That's the thing is, obviously in the end he did lose, but when you talk about having the killer instinct to win and knowing how to win, he clearly knows how because he could have won that tournament 5 times because he was making the putt on all those playoff holes when he had to.
He was forcing Drew to have to play
Right.
as good as Drew did. 'Cause,
Absolutely.
Like, if Drew messed up once, he lost.
And at the end of the day-
they were both just
Right.
killers
Yeah,
the entire round.
Yeah, let's not even mention Drew's putting was insane. Like,
Yeah.
talk about one of the most streaky putters on tour previously has now become a guy who's just going to make it
Yeah,
when he needs to.
EV7 took a huge risk. Not a huge risk, but when EV7 sponsored Drew, we were like,
Interesting.
I think we even said it, like, Drew is not known for his putter. Like, his putter's known for what holds him back. And we were like, this could be great for EV7 if his putting turns around, but it also could be like a weird one if he didn't.
He's
and his putting turned
fantastic. And yeah, but back to Gannon, the thing is, even when he did end up missing his putt to lose, he missed high through a good putt. Like it
Yeah.
was, and it was a long one.
Well,
out of
and the only
bunker.
reason he was in the playoff, well, not the only reason, because obviously there's shots all over the place, but
It's
the
'cause he
most
got a bad
obvious
break
one
out
is,
of bounds.
yeah, he threw a great shot.
Well, that being, I mean,
Well, it looked like a great shot
Yeah.
that skipped, and I understand what Philo and Ian were saying is
Well,
like, why challenge the top? Just throw
I
it
think-
low into the front of the hill and let it skip up.
I think
but,
it's a very obvious case of he was trying to do that and had adrenaline going and just gassed it
yeah,
a little
but
bit.
it still wasn't a bad.
It
shot.
wasn't a bad shot. He
Like,
got a bad skip.
You throw that shot 10 times, probably 7 of them are within the bullseye.
Right.
That like 10-foot
Yeah,
circle.
they were all like, I don't know why you challenged the plateau. I'm like, I don't think he was trying to.
Yeah,
I think
he was just- he
I
threw
think
a
he
good-
just had adrenaline going and
He threw a
gassed
good
it.
shot and it just got a very unfortunate roll OB. And then he still had that 20-foot putt to make sure he
Yeah.
even made the playoff.
Putting was
and he was able to regather himself and make
He
it.
is like the new like James Conrad, where he gets anywhere within 50 feet of the basket. I'm like, yeah, he's making this.
Yeah.
like it just seems like, and he knows he's making.
Well, that's
it
the other thing, too,
He's
is,
just
like-
got that attitude where he knows he's gonna make it.
He missed the putt to win, so I guess but it was on the like 4th playoff hole. Because that's the other thing, too, you got to factor in.
That was the putt to push.
Or putt to push, yeah. But the putt that lost in the tournament is what I was meant to say. But, so some people might be like, oh, man, killer instinct, he didn't have it. Well,
he could have won
made
3
it through
times.
4 playoff holes.
Right.
Like,
And
it was on the 4th
somebody was
going to
miss eventually.
Yeah, like when's the last time we've seen a playoff go that long?
Right.
That
he
was thrilling.
he was also going first, which was pressure because Drew had the opportunity to lay up.
I did like that new playoff rule where you flip-flopped who went first.
Yeah, that's fun.
So it also doesn't go off the previous hole. It's a randomly assigned. I don't know how they randomly assigned it, but it's randomly assigned who goes first on hole 1. And then after that, you flip-flopped who had the tee.
I was mega bummed that and then luckily it didn't matter because they actually ended up getting to an interesting playoff hole. But the fact that they started on the most boring hole on that course, that hole 18 is the type of hole you want for a playoff. There's spectators all down the right. You've got options. You've got a really difficult hole. Just walk back to the tee and play 18 again. It would have been an awesome playoff hole. Instead, they're like, yeah, let's go to the wide open forehand or backhand shot.
Yeah.
It was very dumb. I'm glad it made it to hole 5 because at least that hole, that hole is ruthless.
Well, it's technically hole, 7?
Or is it 7? Yeah, 7.
Yeah.
That hole is ruthless.
Yeah.
Those bunkers, man. Oh, it was, I was nervous when Drew laid up. I was like, I don't really like that because I feel like worst case scenario, he would have just tossed it into the bunker and been in the same shoes. Because all I was thinking is like that layup putt.
That's terrifying.
Is going to be so scary, but he did it. So props, he executed.
Yeah, I saw people like talking about how genius it was to lay up there, and I was like, I just don't like it.
I wouldn't have done it just because it's another one where Gannon best case scenario is taking a 3.
Right. If you throw the hyzer shot, worst case scenario, you're going to have a putt at 3. Mm-hmm. I guess worst case scenario is you're short on the green on that like golf green.
Right.
But for Drew, that's not really a thought because you're throwing so far. So like more than likely you're going to be in the bunker.
Probably
worst
even
case
closer
scenario,
than Gannon too, because Gannon was pretty far.
With a putt to at least push.
Yeah.
Laying up, you now have to execute 2 shots.
Exactly. That was the whole thing.
It doubled the amount of shots.
And if you miss that second one and go OB, it's it.
And the first one you haven't really practiced. Yeah. Because all weekend you've been going for the greens. So and now you have a tough jokery layup.
That layup was kind of tough. He just kind of walked up and threw it. And I was like, woof.
I was terrified. When I saw him throwing a putter, I was like, what are you doing? Because I was like, you might just hand this to Gannon. If you mess up the layup, the first layup or the second layup, you literally handed it to Gannon. Yeah. Because then Gannon just has to lay up out of the bunker and tap out a 4.
It was pretty impressive though. Drew was clutch. Very clutch.
Drew actually round 1 he shot only a 5 under, which was 6 back of the lead and outside of the top 40.
What a comeback.
This has to be one of the first times that a player after one round has been outside the top 40 and came back to win in disc golf.
Some of those Paul Worlds back in the day.
Yeah, maybe. Part of it is just like the Las Vegas over the 4 rounds, there wasn't much scoring separation. No. So being outside the top 40, we have to remember he was only 5 back of the lead. Right. So 5 strokes through 3 rounds, not as impressive as being like, dude, he was at like 45th and then came back. But regardless, very impressive stuff no matter what. Because, that's like, 10th card? 9th card?
Yeah.
And then came back to win. And then some other storylines beyond Drew and Gannon's incredible play. We had Ricky finishing in 7th, losing by 7. Yeah, Eagle finishing 21st and losing by 12. Cale LaVisca missed cash for the first time in over 13 years at this event.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Which means
that's crazy.
And then Nate Sexton had to birdie his last 4 holes of round 3 to extend his almost 14-year cash streak. But he didn't have the longest active going into the tournament because he was 47 tournaments shy of Cale's, according to Ultiworld. But Sexton now has the longest active cash streak.
He got it, though.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because when Cale lost it, Sexton was second. But yeah, Cale, first time missing cash in over 13 years.
I think we're going to hear about one of those like each week right now.
Is that 2009? Last time he missed cash?
14 years?
13.
Oh, 13 years? Yeah.
Yeah, 2009.
That
was the last time Cale LaVisca missed cash.
Days. I think we're going to literally hear about stuff like that each week. Anytime there's a cut, because there is just like so many guys.
Oh, some other notable players.
There's just a lot of guys that can play.
Some other notable players to miss the cut: Corey Ellis, Chris Clemens, Greg Barsby, Austin Hannum, Tim Barham, Emerson Keith, Nate Perkins, just to name some. They all missed the cut this weekend. Now, is this because of how little scoring separation the course had?
That's all I got to say.
Is this because of how little scoring separation the course had?
That's a big part of it.
Or is it just signs of how deep the MPO field is? Or is it like just a perfect mixture?
I think there's a little bit of mixture, but I do think Vegas if you can just play clean golf, you can really hang around on that course. And if you have a little bit of distance to kind of like not have to throw super far on those approaches, like I don't think there was a lot of scoring separation. I'm hoping this isn't true. I'm hoping it's not just like this was the Vegas wide open course effect. And like we go to Waco and it's like the old days where it's like, all right, there's 3 guys in contention, because I loved that leaderboard. And I'm really thinking that there's enough guys now that are so good that we're going to start seeing more of that, where there's like at least, 5-6 guys going in the last day that can win. Because like
I don't think that's going to happen every weekend, because there's always going to be someone will tear up the course. Yeah,
there will be an event. Obviously, there's always going to be events where guys will separate and just really pull away. But I would take that every week, where you're just like, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. But I do want to see I would love to see what we just saw on a course like Waco or at a tournament like Ledgestone, where it's a very hard course. Because like we've seen tournaments like this before at like the Preserve, where it's a very quote unquote easy course, easy for the top player course.
Yeah.
To where they're able to shoot basically double digits or better every round. And there's not a lot of scoring separation, because the holes that you got to birdie, or is like everyone's able to birdie them, and then the holes that you can't birdie, like no one's able to get them. Mm-hmm. So it's not like there's not a lot of holes out there where you can take a 2 or a 5. Right. Like there's not that type of swing holes. So on courses like that, it's very easy for there to be a lot of people in contention. What's going to really excite me is when there is a course where there's a lot of separation, and there's still, so then like, it might not necessarily look like you have the whole top 10 within like 2 strokes of each other, but you might have the whole top 10 within 5.
Right.
And that's the same type of scenario where 5 strokes means nothing. Because realistically, like even at this tournament, Dickerson going into the final round was one of the players that was in contention and somewhat
way off the pace. Right.
And he ended up losing by 9.
Yeah.
Right? Dickerson, he lost 4 strokes.
Same with Ricky and Eagle. Look at how much they lost by, and they were right in it.
Yeah, so
they lost by a ton.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like everyone was kind of like in the mix a little bit. I think Dickerson might have been, it looks like he lost by 8 to Burr the final round. Or no, he lost by, what am I talking about? He lost by 1 to Burr the final round, so he must have been down 8 to Burr. But at some point in the tournament, Dickerson was right there in
After
it.
round 2.
Round 3 is where he lost 6 strokes. Yeah. But like there were so many players that were like that, where they were right in it. And then you had so many players like at one point, Calvin Heimberg, who ended up in 3rd, he did that from 3rd card. And at one point he was in the lead through more holes, but he was at like 38 or something under 30. It must have been 36 under. And like Gannon and Drew and then were having to like try to catch up to Calvin.
Yeah.
And Calvin was on 3rd card. Same thing with Kevin Jones. These guys were doing that from like 2nd, 3rd, 4th card, and being able to like push and set a line of like, hey, you have to catch us.
Yeah,
which is thrilling to me. And that's something where our live coverage, I thought, did a great job. Is like we got to see that.
We saw a lot. Yeah, and the one thing I do like about the 4-round format is that when it's so evident when you look at the leader, you just look at that PGA scoreboard. Almost every player near that top had 1 bad round. So it almost seems like you need 4 rounds to have each player have 1 round that isn't quite as good, and that's what creates all that mixture. Because if you have 3 rounds, some guy can get hot and just pull away. Where if there's that 4th round, it's like
someone's going to do
1
something.
out of 4, you're going to do something like bad. You're going to have a bad round, or you're going to have the crazy good round in there. And it almost like always creates a little more drama when there's 4 rounds.
Yeah. Now, before we talk too much about the coverage, I do want to talk about our points from predictions. So on the prediction show or the preview show on last Wednesday, we all took our top 3 for MPO and FPO and then a dark horse bonus. So in case, just a little refresher, if you have the correct person in your top 3, but they're in the wrong spot, you get 1 point. If you have the correct person in the correct spot in your top 3, you get 3 points. For both MPO and FPO, and then Trevor won the dark horse, so Trevor gets a 1-point dark horse bonus. That'll be whoever wins the dark horse each week will get 1 extra point. So I had Calvin was my only correct one in MPO. I didn't have him in the right spot, so I get 1 point. In FPO, I had my top 3 correct and Paige in the correct spot, which gave me 5 points. So I got 6 points total. Trevor had Calvin in his top 3 in the wrong spot, so he gets 1 point. Kristen in his top 3 in the wrong spot, he gets another point, and then the dark horse bonus. So Trevor is at 3 points. And then Konner had Calvin in his top 3 in the right spot, gets him 3 points, and had Katrina in his top 3 and predicted for the win, so he gets 3 points there as well. So Konner got 6 points, I got 6 points, Trevor got 3 points. So that's the roundup after the Las Vegas Challenge. Yeah, I going in, like after I looked at the leaderboard, I was like, dude, there's no way anyone's close to me. I got the full top 3 FPO right, and then I got Paige in the right spot. But then Konner got Calvin in the right spot on MPO, even though his other 2 in MPO was wrong. So boom, boom.
It's okay. I did a last minute pick on this one. The next one, I'm going to put a lot of thought into it, and none of them.
I was going to say, so you'll just get no points?
Yeah, no points.
That's the key.
You can count on that.
That's the key.
All right, so let's talk about the coverage. I personally was overall very impressed, very happy with the Disc Golf Network coverage of this event. There was pretty much no downtime between holes or shots, and if there was, they were able to fill it with stats or replays or commercial breaks or something that at least like added to the stream. Like we were not at any point just watching people walk up fairways, which is what happened previously.
Yeah, switching was solid.
We saw also a ton of golf. And in a tournament like this, it was super exciting because you had Calvin, Rick, Kevin Jones, AB, etc., all making runs for the lead at different times. And on the live coverage, we were able to see the highlights of all those things unfold. Right. And players that were in the mix and had fallen out, we didn't watch because there was no point. They weren't in there. And that's exactly what live should be. It's a completely different product than post. And this, what it does is it separates it to where, like, in years past, you're watching almost the same thing. Whether you're watching Jomez lead or live, it was just like live, you're watching it live, but you're watching it for 4 hours, or Jomez, you can watch it the next day for 30 minutes.
Right.
And that's why there was so much contention, and it felt like both couldn't exist because both were trying to occupy the same space. This weekend was exactly how it should be, where live occupies an entirely different space.
We saw like 30 different golfers on any given day.
You were seeing, like, if Calvin would have won from third card, there wasn't a post-produced coverage that was going to cover that. But live was able to cover it all.
That's what's going to really start switching people around is when something like that happens.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we have no option to watch that because.
But this is how both exist, though. Is like the live coverage, you're watching golf from, and it was the same on FPO, golf from 15 people who might be in contention or at least doing something cool on the course. You get to see all of that, and it makes the 4 hours go by a lot faster than when we're just watching one card.
Oh, yeah.
And then post-produce is like, I love Chris Dickerson. I want to see every one of his shots. Because live, you're not going to see every one of every single person's shots. That's not what live is for.
Well, if they're playing okay and they're on the lead card, you will.
Sure. Well, if they're in contention for the win, you will. But if you are just a big fan of Ricky, for instance, this weekend,
you can't bank on it.
You're not going to see every shot of Ricky. Whereas on post-produce, if Ricky's on one of the cards, even if he has a bad round, as a Ricky fan, you can go watch every stroke.
You can watch it unfold.
Yeah. And it's like a 30-minute recap. So I think that's kind of where the two live, and that's how both coexist. Is like there's going to be people who watch live and are like, man, but like what actually happened to Rick out there? Or what actually happened to so-and-so out there? And then you watch the post-produced. Whereas before, if you watched live, you weren't also watching post-produced because you're watching the same thing.
Right.
Now people are going to be able to watch both and get benefits from both. And I also loved that the Las Vegas Challenge was free to PDGA members, because it was free all weekend to PGA members. Because I saw a lot of people on social media and stuff posting like, I gave live a chance this weekend because it was free to me. And they're like, I'm definitely paying for Disc Golf Network before Waco because I loved it.
It'll change you quick. It is just so much better. I think that they did all the critiques that I had for it are not major because the switching is like very crucial and they did a good job with that. The only things that I really noted were there were times where the audio mixing wasn't great. One of like the commentators' mics would come in hot, but they usually fixed it pretty quickly, so that wasn't a big deal. The other one is, and this is kind of a plus. This one's kind of a plus and minus, but they were experimenting with different shots. A lot. So I saw one shot that I really liked. They obviously had the drone, which was awesome. I think they overused it a little bit early, but then they figured it out. By the end, they were using it at the right time, and it was great. They seem to have really good drone
The first round
pilots.
I tweeted and said, so you guys think the Disc Golf Network has a drone?
It was pretty overused.
It was like every other shot we were seeing a drone in between. I was like, we don't need to see this every time.
But I liked the like on the final round, like they would start in on the, like somebody's walking up to their disc and they'd start in on the disc and zoom out to the shot, like to like that. That's a cool shot. The only one I didn't like that they were going to a lot is face on the player while they're throwing. And the problem with that, it's an okay shot, that's fine, but the problem is they were cutting away too late. So you
lost context.
We're losing what was happening in the shot. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that would happen occasionally is they would wait they would throw a shot and it'd be going to a basket that was a little bit blind or behind a bush, and they'd switch a little late to where you weren't seeing the disc. I think it was most notably on Paige's run on the whole 18.
Yeah. If that thing would have went in, I'd have been pissed.
It switched and the disc had already like landed. And I was like, well, that was late. Like,
Yeah.
you got to, on that shot, the only thing that matters is the basket. So as soon as that thing comes out of her hand, switch
that thing.
You got to switch. So but everything that they're doing wrong per se is very fixable.
They're
and
making steps in the right direction.
Yeah, and they're
towards it.
learning. Now the commentary, that's a whole nother thing. I don't know. Are we going into that next?
Yeah, whatever you wanted to go to.
So commentary, and this is like always the subject, I feel like, but it was not great.
It got worse as the weekend went on.
It wasn't it's not like it was unlistenable. Let's make that
No.
clear. It's not like it took away from my experience. It just kept frustrating me a few times. Philo, I thought was pretty good. I thought Philo did a good job being the color commentary guy. I give Philo an A-.
Yeah, I thought he provided a lot of good insights, and he also provided good, like, on Gannon's final shot, for instance, talking about, like, you know, what you got to be thinking about, though, is that risk. So you got to be going low into the front hill and letting it slide.
Yeah.
like stuff where he's been there, so he can describe what you should do. That's exactly what a color commentator should do.
Yeah, Philo did a great job.
He was great in that role.
And Ian, on the other hand, was a little all over the place. He was flustered, to say one word. The disc naming thing, I'll let you explain the disc naming thing. We actually were talking about that in a Twitter space after round 3. I'll let Hunter talk about that. But Ian just seemed a little bit flustered. He just kept saying things that were wrong, basically. And then sometimes Philo would correct him and sometimes he wouldn't.
Well, it's a weird spot to be the other person on the commentary team. Be like, hey, that's wrong.
Exactly.
You don't want to keep doing that the entire broadcast.
Because you don't know how much the audience knows if he was wrong.
Yeah.
Like he kept like things like just continually calling Gannon our leader when he wasn't leading the tournament. And then he'd be like, well, actually, technically Calvin's leading, but he's like we know that, but he's not the leader of the tournament. So don't call him the leader. You know, there were just a lot of little things that just kept adding up to where he just kept saying things that are incorrect. And then Terry, whenever they'd throw it over to Terry, it seemed like he was never in the right spot.
No, they never knew where Terry was.
They never knew where Terry was.
Which is very frustrating.
Every time they throw it to
like,
Terry.
oh, dude, that looks like it might be OB. Terry, is that OB? And Terry's like, I'm actually behind the players right now. I can see about as much as you can.
Exactly.
Or and I was like, okay.
Or my favorite one was Gannon putting on one of the playoff holes, and they go, all right, Terry, like you could tell Terry was like locked in the moment and like you got to be like I don't know. He goes, all right, Terry, what kind of slope is he dealing with there? And he goes, not much. There's not really a slope, guys. And that's it. Like that's why. Hey, there's not really a slope.
He must have been like right next to the Drew throwing.
And like, and it was just like, what the heck?
Well,
like,
there was also a few times where a disc like went OB or like close to OB, and Ian's like, we can't see where that went. Terry, did you get eyes on it? Yeah. And this is what we heard.
Right.
And then Ian would go,
was,
all right, and next up we
every time they wanted to use Terry was...
It wasn't planned.
Right. And it was always about OB lines. And like Terry is only one person. There's a reason why on-course reporters are typically like, A, you're typically down the fairway. So you're typically actually seeing where this land. You're not behind people. And B, like... You know, ask him about the wind. You know, ask him about things that you know that he'll knows.
Like
and
no
also,
matter where he's at on the course,
and also,
he can tell you.
How about like before the hole starts, somebody in your ear, hey, by the way, this is where Terry is, so this is what he'll be able to see.
Or just, I think it would be my idea.
It was rough. Every time, I don't think they threw it to Terry once, and I was like, great segment,
and it wasn't
guys.
It wasn't Terry's fault.
I don't think so.
You could
Terry
tell Terry was
trying,
just
man,
thrown stuff at, and he was just like.
Tough job.
It felt like to me, the on-course reporter should almost be letting them know or like texting someone like, I've got something great. Throw it to me when you have a second.
Right. Find a little story.
Be like, hey, wind's really picking up. Throw it to me. I can describe it.
Or be like, hey, I overheard so-and-so talking about their game plan for the next hole. Like you gotta be a little bit of a reporter.
When I was at a basketball game and the like reporter for ESPN, I was watching her because she was like in front of where we were sitting. And I noticed that like a timeout's called, and whichever team was like in a pressing moment, she went over and was leaning in, listening, and then immediately walked to the tunnel and was like, yeah, you know, in the time, I didn't hear what she said, obviously, because I was at the game, but you know what they're saying. It was like, in the timeout, the coach was saying blah, blah, blah.
Because
she was adding something that,
too.
Yeah, she was adding something that the commentators couldn't tell. Right. I think that's the point Terry should do. If a disc is close to OB, be like, oh man, that thing, it looks like it's challenging the OB. We'll have to see when we get up there. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
You don't have to be like, oh, did that go OB? We have no idea. We're in Milwaukee right now. We can't see it. Right. Like that doesn't none of us know if it went OB. Just leave it at that. And if Terry hears that, he can immediately radio in and be like, that is OB or something like that. But if he didn't, don't throw it to Terry and just cross your fingers that he's standing close enough to know.
Exactly.
The disc naming thing was a little out of hand this weekend.
It was bad.
The issue, I have a few issues with it. Number one, this isn't the biggest issue, but from the Disc Golf Network's perspective, people still don't understand this, so I'm not going to park on it because, again, this isn't the biggest issue I have with it, and people think it is. It is free advertising from the Disc Golf Network for these companies. Not the biggest issue, not the reason I think it should be gotten rid of, but that is something that you can't get around that. Yes, the companies are paying the players to be on lead card, but again, companies pay players are on lead card. The Disc Golf Network provides the advertising with getting $0 from it. Mm-hmm. If you're going to advertise as a business, you need to be paid for that advertising. That's not the biggest issue. The issue I had was 9 times out of 10 that it was used this weekend added nothing. It added no value.
Yeah.
It felt almost like it was Ian's thing, and so Ian used it as a crutch of like, I don't know what to say in this moment.
Yeah, no,
and so
100%.
it's like, I don't know what to say in this moment, so here's Calvin with his Draco. Mm-hmm. Okay.
If I got to hear Calvin with his Draco one more time, like I know he's throwing an overstable fairway.
That's what I'm saying. Is a great use of it was Drew Gibson going jokery on the playoff hole.
Like, oh, it looks like he's pulling jokery.
Use.
Yeah, that
because
adds to the
at
shot.
That point, I don't care that you told me it's the jokery or it's an overstable putter. I don't care that part. I now, as a fan, got something I didn't know. Because it led me to be like, oh, shoot, he's going putter. He's laying up.
Now, I will say, we obviously know what a jokery is. And I'll have to rewatch the clip because I don't remember if did he say putter?
I think he said overstable approach.
Okay, because that's important is you need to also name what the disc is if you're not going to. My biggest problem, though. Like,
I just didn't like when like Calvin or AB's driving a wide open hole and he's like, all right, here's his destroyer. Like, nah, dip. He's an Innova player with a 500-foot shot.
Yeah, like
if he threw that with a putter, then tell me. But like, you don't add something. If you're gonna talk, give me something I can't see.
Right. Yeah, and then my biggest problem was the fact that I think he was like 80% correct.
If even.
It was like one of the worst I've seen.
That's the other thing that's super frustrating. He's like, man, AB's going with a gator here, and then it's a flip up T-bird shot. Yeah. And it's like, what? Or they were like at one point, Calvin had a somewhat important shot, and instead of telling me anything about the shot, they just Philo and Ian went back and forth on whether or not it was a Luster Firebird. Then it flipped up, and they're like, oh, must not be a Firebird. Instead of being like, oh, that's flipping, bringing OB, and they're like, yeah, it must not have been a Firebird for it to flip up like that. Yeah, maybe it's something like a T-bird. Yeah. And then he parked it. I'm like, that you just spent 15 seconds while Calvin's running up and throwing, debating if it's a Firebird or not, which does nothing to me, the viewer.
The worst one, and you want to talk about free advertising, was him naming Haley King's overstable approach disc as a zone all weekend until like the last round, when she's wearing Innova on her back. Like, that she got sponsored by Innova, and that's a gator, or better.
Pig, or something.
But like that, now we're talking about this is where the advertising thing comes into play. Because like Discraft has got advertising, and Innova's the one paying her. Like, oh man, that's just, you just can't do that.
No,
and you avoid this problem entirely. Because I agree, sometimes I like hearing the names of the disc. It's part of disc golf.
But I like it when it surprises me.
Right, but like, you avoid that issue when all you say is she's going with an overstable approach disc here.
Well, what I would like to know is, as a fan,
because they all fly the same.
Would it give me?
Gosh.
Now, off the tee again, when we're just
I think
talking,
we're in the minority here too. I think we're gonna get crushed.
We are.
But you can't deny that he got it wrong so many times.
I want to ask you, the people who are about to type your comment and hate on me, I want to ask you this question. 2 questions. 1. Did you genuinely feel like it added something to your experience when it was a obvious answer? Like Gannon is throwing his D1. Once he's called that D1 out once,
right?
We know that disc. We don't need to hear it every single tee that Gannon steps on. We don't need to hear it.
Yeah, like, oh, you're telling me that
did that add to you?
Is still a D1? You're kidding me.
There's had to be something else in that moment that
he threw like 2
added.
Discs the whole like last round.
A great example of where it added was when Gannon on the second to last playoff hole
changed discs
went to like that, whatever that like zone type Prodigy disc is,
or even
deflector. What is it called?
It starts reverb.
No, the reverb's a driver. It starts with a D.
The defibrillator.
It's something Kevin Jones knew approach.
The distortion.
Disc. Distortion.
Give me that.
Boom.
10 points to Gryffindor.
When Gannon was throwing the distortion, that was a great use of the disc
Well,
name
here's another
because it added to me because I was thinking he's going to go with a distance driver or something. He's going putter. It's like, what the heck? That's surprising great use.
Well, here's another one. When the very next hole, he did name the D1, but the reason he named it is because he had thrown a D3 and parked it.
And he switched it up.
So he switched. He said he's actually switching to the D1. That
good use.
Makes sense.
The second question that I have, though, is what value you got from the disc name. Would you have got less value if on Haley King's approaches, they said, oh, it looks like she's going with an overstable approach disc? Or, oh, man, it looks like Gannon's throwing that forehand approach disc he's been throwing all around.
The only time I think I want to know a disc name, and as somebody who's a disc golf enthusiast, I'm going to be able to figure it out pretty quickly. But, I mean, there's
and if you're not a disc golf enthusiast, does the disc name even help you? Because when they said Scepter, Drew Gibson's throwing a Scepter, with how involved I am in the sport, that disc name meant nothing to me. Because I've never thrown a Scepter.
Right.
So they're like, Drew's throwing a Scepter. I'm like, okay, what does a Scepter do?
I said the only time
Explain
I want
it
to
to
know.
me. I don't know.
The only time I want to know a disc name is if somebody is throwing a disc like all around and it's doing something absolutely puzzling where I'm like, I don't even know. What could that disc be?
Because that's what someone else said is they were like, because I was saying how if they just say the disc name, kind of like I just said with Drew Scepter, if you aren't in disc golf enough and you just the first time you've ever heard of a T-bird is when Calvin threw it and then it flips up and rides to the right. I'm thinking like, oh my word, this happened to me multiple times. Every in the bag we talk about a T-bird and then you buy it and it's very overstable. Why? Because that T-bird's been in their bag for years.
They also throw harder.
Yeah.
A lot.
And so then someone responded and they're like, well, as a disc golf fan, if they say Firebird and the Firebird flips, like I know that's a beat-in Firebird. I'm like, okay, but the brand new player doesn't. So the brand new player's gonna be like, oh, dude, that Firebird that just flipped up, like it literally hyzer flipped and rode straight. That's a sick disc. I need to go get it. No Firebird does that. You're going to go buy a Firebird and you're going to be so ticked off. Instead of being like, oh man, this is a really well-seasoned, overstable disc. It's going to have this flight characteristic. That adds
I think it just comes down to before each drive, Ian has to just ask himself, or before each shot, does me naming the disc actually add something to this shot?
Like it's a good rule of thumb of like, am I surprised by this selection?
Right.
Then
exactly.
do it.
If you go, oh, he's going with that, then maybe name it. But if it's just like, yep, wide open forehand, he's throwing a destroyer. Well, of course he is. If he's throwing a felon because it's Ricky, well, yeah, of course he is.
Yeah. There you have it.
That's
that. Go ahead, roast us. I'm not. You're not changing my mind.
Doss back to the booth, baby.
Don't do that.
Doss and Philo.
Overall, though, the Disc Golf Network coverage this weekend, very great, incredible. The best. I think it was the best coverage they've put out.
Honestly, I think things are really going to come full circle whenever Sexton retires to the booth because I think.
But Sexton's a color commentary.
The problem is Sexton's a color guy, but I think you almost. You either do this two ways. You got to either hire a play-by-play guy who is a professional commentator, and like that's what they do. They've studied it. They do because it is a real like actual study. It is hard to do. It's not an easy job. Or you're gonna have to find a disc golf guy who's good at it and like just doesn't want to do color.
Maybe the disc golf guy.
Because that is the issue. If you toss a play-by-play guy in who is a disc golf guy, they're gonna not want to shut up about the shot.
Yeah,
and like I don't blame them
because like Sexton,
because like Nate Doss has a better career than Philo. So like if he's the play-by-play guy, he's gonna want to add to the shot.
Oh, because that's the thing is like Philo, Sexton, Doss, they would not be good play-by-play commentators because
it's hard to take a back seat. Yeah,
their role is like they have this wealth of knowledge from years on tour, and their role is to spill that through the screen to us.
Yeah,
and normally though that because like commentary, you're never gonna get it 100% right. There's always going to be someone that dislikes whatever commentary you do. The thing, though, is usually it's the color commentary that people dislike. Usually the play-by-play guy is just in the background. He's doing play-by-play. He doesn't like it's hard to dislike a play-by-play guy.
And my last critique and the other thing with Ian that could be tough is Ian is buddies with a lot of the disc golf guys, whereas if you just hire somebody who's a professional commentator, they're going to be objective because I
didn't feel like Ian this week did too much of rooting. Like
it's not as much. It's not as much rooting, but it's acting sad every time a disc rolls out of bounds.
That doesn't bother me.
But you never like you just those guys will never say that was an awful shot. You know?
No, they did.
Not enough.
He literally at one point Paige threw a jump on. He goes, "What was that?" Which is hilarious.
Well, I mean,
I loved that.
That was one example.
And then they also,
I don't know.
Someone pulled it wide. It landed on the green. He's like, "Man, that was just an awful yank."
I see too much.
He called shots shanks. He did it all weekend.
All right. calm down.
No, I refuse. I stand with Ian.
I just hear too much like, oh no. Like it's the example, the bad examples just stand out for me too much. A shot's coasting OB and you hear him go, oh no, like stay, like that's gonna go out of bounds, stay in bounds. Like you hear them being like upset about it.
That
Like,
doesn't bother me.
It bothers me. I want more objectivity. That's all I ask.
But if you
for.
take all personality out, then you have a robot. Like why don't we just have Siri commentate?
No, you don't. You can have excitement.
Just have someone typing.
You're not going to hear Jim Nance go like, "Oh man, that is such a bummer that one in the water." Like, "Oh, I feel so bad for him."
I didn't hear Ian once say felt so bad for him.
Oh, I did.
Feels so bad for them.
I heard him say that he felt bad for players. I promise.
Maybe someone who was like literally blowing up on the brink of like destruction.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want to hear a commentator say that.
I bet you could find clips. Someone actually, because Brody brought this up once and then got destroyed by plenty of clips of NFL, golf, and other ones.
The clips that kept getting brought to Brody were from local broadcasters, though, and those are biased.
There were some from PGA Tour.
What was the clip?
Where it's like rolling OB, and they're like, "Oh, stop! Oh," and there it goes.
Right, but that doesn't mean it was good commentary though. We never said other sports commentary is perfect. That's the problem. People kept bringing those examples, like we said, golf commentary is completely perfect.
Well, that's what
they just do it better. Most of the time.
Said you would never. You literally just said you would never. Hear
Jim Nance. Well, Jim Nance is the best though, and that clip wasn't Jim Nance.
You can't say you would never hear. Like someone's gonna find me a Jim Nance clip.
Fine.
DM it to Trevor.
Change my statement. You would very rarely, if ever, hear.
And I very rarely heard Ian say it this weekend.
I don't know. I hear him sympathize with players way too often. That's all.
Every time will never bother
when
me.
a shot is thrown,
unless he's doing it for one player and not for the other, it'll never.
When
bother
a shot
me.
is thrown, I feel like Ian is on their team when he's talking about the shot a lot of the times.
But that's fine as long as he's on everyone.
I just don't like it.
Really being,
and that's my opinion.
Not being non-objective would be if he was only doing it to one player. Like if in the playoff he's like, oh, Gannon's went OB. This means Drew's gonna have a shot at the win.
That's
and
fine.
Drew's went OB. He's like, oh, Drew Gibson's shot just went OB. Gannon Burr has a shot at that's not being objective.
That's fine.
But if both upset him,
well, that's fine. I just don't like it. That's
fine.
That's all I'm saying.
That's fine because I think like one thing, which is the disc naming, like that is just general. That doesn't add anything.
I'm just kidding.
No, that's fine. That doesn't add anything.
I'm not going to do that.
No, because that disc naming, I would love someone to show me where. I love someone to point out where it adds to the stream. The disc naming in certain scenarios does when it's surprising, but I would love to know when every single, not a graphic, but the commentator, that's what they say, every single shot where that adds to the stream because it can't.
Especially because in disc golf and in a big tournament, like. Players are going to throw the same disc so many times.
Yeah, especially on an open course like this.
Especially on an open course where you don't need a specific flight. You need straight hyzer flip, and overstable. Like there's like 3 different shots you even need. So yeah. With
that being said, it's time to jump into Trevor's trivia.
All right.
What you got, Trevor?
Well, we're going to just see how much you were paying attention this weekend. So we're going to do a little quiz on the statistics. From this past event. So I'm going to go through different categories and I'm going to basically give you a player or we'll just go each category and see if you can guess who led each one. I think that'll be fun. We'll go with the MPO and the FPO. We'll do a few. Let me just get the actual UDisc event up. Okay. So, the first one we're going to go with is MPO, who had the highest birdie percentage.
Highest birdie percentage?
Doesn't always correlate to the winner. That's why this one's a little bit tough.
Anthony Barella.
Incorrect.
Who was it?
It was Drew Gibson.
Oh, okay.
64%.
I was thinking AB had a lot of he would have a bogey and then like 3 birdies and then a double and then so I was thinking that might have been something.
He was literally, if I'm looking at this, he was literally 9% higher. Or no, he was the next highest actually. See if you can guess who the next highest was. This is kind of an interesting one.
The next highest?
Yeah, somebody who had a lot of birdies but also a lot of bogeys.
Well, that was who I guessed, Anthony Barella.
Well, it's not him.
Yeah, so Ricky Wysocki.
Adam Hammes.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that
at 58%. All right, we'll do the next one. Let's go. This is a great one. Strokes gained C1X.
This still in MPO?
Yeah, in MPO.
Strokes gained C1X. Strokes gained. It's got to be like, we'll go Gannon Burr.
Colton Montgomery.
Wow.
And he crushed everybody. 9.56. Next highest was Cole Redolin. Shout out EV7, right?
Yes.
Yeah, at 7.31. Gannon Burr, man, where is he on this list? He is... You know what his is going to be? I bet you if I go gain C2, yeah, gain C2 is Gannon Burr significantly. His gain sense. C1X was not that good. And then let's do strokes gained T to green.
Still MPO?
Yeah, MPO, last one for him.
Stroke gained T to green. Green counts circle 2. So someone who got there a lot but didn't convert. Calvin Heimberg.
Bang.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good line of thinking.
Wow.
There.
That was a good line of thinking.
Calvin struggled in round 3. Struggled bad. Like he was missing putts like crazy.
All right. Now we're going to go to the FPO. I'm sure these ones will be very interesting. Wow. When you look at strokes gained putting, it's fascinating in FPO. Like it just doesn't even matter.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense at all.
It is literally crazy. Okay. So let's go strokes gained T to green. We'll start with that one because it's so crazy.
It's gotta be Katrina Allen.
It's Paige Pierce.
I almost gave Paige.
It's crazy.
That's all that matters.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's literally the only thing that matters. Let's go.
You got to give yourself lots of chances, and then convert half them.
Okay, here's an interesting question for you. If the leader of strokes gained putting was 9.9 from Julie Moens.
Okay.
So 9.9. What do you think? Holy cow! How far do I have to go down for this? How many strokes gained putting do you think Katrina Allen had?
0.7.
0.75.
Oh my god!
Holy cow!
That's awesome.
Wow.
I was almost saying
you're kind of killing it here.
I was almost saying it as a joke.
You're kind of killing it here.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, and then
that was incredible.
We'll do one more question.
What a moment.
This one I think will be, this one will be interesting. So Paige Pierce obviously lost by 1 stroke to Kat. How many more OB strokes did she have than Katrina Allen? She had more.
I'm going to say 5 more.
It's 5.
Heck yeah.
What are you looking
I'm not. These are just my notes. You
literally just got 3 of those, and 2 of them were like on the dot correct.
That is very impressive.
What can I say?
This guy, well, all right. I think that answers the question. Hunter was paying attention very well.
I was lucky.
Holy cow.
All right, let's wrap up the show with a quick memorial preview. Since it's not an Elite Series or a Major, it's not going to be a preview show this week. There is a pretty strong field. Paul started the season
that's
here.
such a bummer.
Adam Hammes.
What an awesome start to the season just to have memorial.
Yeah.
Is it going to be live?
No.
Gosh. What am I going to do with myself?
I don't know. We have a week
I'll tell you
off.
what I'm going to do.
Play some disc golf.
No, golf.
Oh, it's going to be warm this weekend, too.
Yeah.
Adam Hammes is going to be there. Kyle Klein, Drew Gibson, Paul. This is going to be the first time seeing Paul this year.
That'll be
one question. Because Memorial, we all know Memorial. Vista and Fountain Hills, whatever it's called. Fountain Lakes, something. The Fountain Course.
McMemorial.
McMemorial. Who's taking it down?
You said who else is going to be there?
We got
Hammes,
Kyle Klein, Drew Gibson, Kayla Viska.
I'm going to say right now, I bet Gibson goes back to back. Wouldn't surprise me. He's good at those courses.
Who you got, Konner?
Dang, that was a deep sigh.
What the frick?
All I was thinking about this whole weekend was, man, if Paul was here right now,
Where would he be?
like where would he be? Because
Liz asked me that, and I said, honestly,
he wasn't
I
beating
don't know.
Gannon Burr.
I was like,
I don't
honestly,
know
I don't know where he'd be.
He would have had to been going off to beat.
I was like, 'cause
Is
Ricky,
Gannon at
Ricky's
Memorial?
seventh.
No, he's not.
we won't see him until week. I
don't know.
Gannon's awesome.
I really wanted to say Drew, just because I think he's gonna be.
Not a bad pick.
I think he's just gonna be coming off hot off
Yeah.
this weekend.
I'll go with Paul. I was thinking Drew had a shot at it. It wouldn't surprise me if Hammes took it, but it's the first time we're going to see Paul this season.
Paul's tough to beat
I
at
think he's going to
Memorial.
be hungry because he missed Vegas.
all the fun,
He
man.
intentionally skipped Vegas, and he's probably seeing a lot of like all the media hype and stuff going to Drew, and I think he wants to come out, slap Drew around, and be like, hey. He wants to put it in people's heads of like, if I was there, I would have won.
I think he's eager to be back in the game.
So
for
I
sure.
think I'm going to go with Paul.
Can't go wrong with that pick.
All right. Well, there you have it. That's this week's episode. Hopefully you enjoyed. We'll be back next Monday, And then next week, we'll also have the Waco preview to get going. So super exciting. We'll talk about Memorial some next week. Thank you all so much for tuning in.